Live from historic Leimert Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me back in stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley, and get updates on X, that's formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. By the way, should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, you can always visit thetavisSmileyShow.com. That's thetavisSmileyShow.com, or wherever you get your podcast, and listen to the Tavis Smiley podcast version of this live program at your leisure. Another great show on tap for you today. In our second hour, linguistics professor Dr. Taylor Jones on how we can better navigate linguistic taboos. Think Joe Biden's mumbles and stumbles. Think Kamala Harris's word salad and random laughter. Think Donald Trump's incessant rambling. We will also talk about the impact of weaponizing words, and our language may be one of the keys to saving democracy as we know it. Linguistics expert Dr. Taylor Jones today in hour 2. In our third hour, 2 conversations. Up first,
autopsy findings coupled with the video where we see her ducking, saying sorry, sir, sorry. He's shot when she's making a motion coming up. That's how you get the downward trajectory. And you see on the video his arm, he aims down. He literally aims down. You see his arms brace in a downward trajectory. And we know that he walked 2 to 3 steps to his right, out away from the counter, where it was, we believe, from objective observation, to get a better shot at Sonya Massey. And when Sonya Massey was staring at the barrel of his gun, we see on the video what she did. She stooped down and said, sorry, sorry. And we believe that the bullet, the shot, was shot while she was in a stooping position coming up. And that's how you get the downward trajectory. And the autopsy confirms what everybody already knew on the video, that this was just a senseless, unnecessary, excessive use of force.
That is audio of Attorney Ben Crump, our regular guest on this program, explaining to all of us the shooting of one Sonya Massey. Dr. Roger Mitchell is Chief Medical Examiner for the nation's capital. He'll join us in hour 3 to talk about why he believes police violence should be considered a public health issue. I mean, think about that for a moment, just a second. What it means that a chief medical examiner in this country believes that police violence should be considered a public health issue. We'll talk about it in hour 3 with Dr. Roger Mitchell. But in this first hour today, 2 more conversations on the B side of this hour. Former California Senator Barbara Boxer on the political future of the woman who succeeded her in the U.S. Senate, Kamala Harris. I also want to ask Senator Boxer about legislation she proposed years ago to abolish the Electoral College. You look at the map right now, and one can see how Kamala Harris, not unlike Hillary Clinton, could win the popular vote but lose in the Electoral College. Barbara Boxer years ago said we ought to just scrap this thing, just abolish the Electoral College. We'll talk to her about that, as well as her thoughts on the future of the woman who now has, once had, I should say, the seat in the Senate that Barbara Boxer occupied, now Vice President and the presumptive nominee for the Democratic Party, Kamala Harris. We commence today's show talking labor politics with activist and organizer Shama Sawant as labor groups start to pick sides in this year's election. Shama, good to have you back on the program. How are you today? Shama going once, Shama going twice. Shama, is your mute button hit? Unmute yourself if you are. Shama Sawant. Calling Shama Sawant. All right, what a way to start the show. When we come forward, we will commence this conversation today, I hope, with a former Seattle Council member, a strategist, and organizer, Shama Sawant. As I heard you heard me say a moment ago, labor groups are starting to line up. If you saw any of the RNC, if you could stomach it, and saw any of the Republican National Convention, then you saw the president of the Teamsters give a historic address to the Republican Party. That had never happened before. But these labor groups are starting to organize and line up behind these candidates. And as always, labor has an impact, a huge impact in these elections, particularly at the federal level and certainly when it comes to the office of the president. So we'll talk about labor in this first half hour, as I mentioned a moment ago, and then we will move to Barbara Boxer on the backside of this hour when we come forward. Glad to have you listening to Tavis Smiley.
Hope, agency, dignity. This is Tavis Smiley.
Can you dig it? Come on!
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
Help prevent gun violence tragedies. Gun violence restraining orders can help to prevent individuals at risk of harming themselves or others by removing their guns for 21 days up to 5 years. Learn more about how to petition for a GVRO and the role of GVROs in safeguarding communities by visiting lacountygvro.org or by calling 1-833-540-0473. GVROs can save lives.
Hey LA, today I'm here to talk to you about Grid Alternatives, which is a nonprofit in LA that focuses on renewable energy. We serve communities who have been left out of the renewable energy sector. We offer paid job training, and in 13 weeks, you can become a solar installer. 80% of our graduates get hired into the industry, and once you're hired in the industry, you stop at a high, medium income. That could be $20 an hour or more. 80% of our graduates get hired into the industry. Call today so you don't be left out at 323-861-0105 or gridalternatives.org, gridalternatives.org.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues? Who are you? Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
Did you know your life insurance is an asset you can sell? I'm Jay Jackson, CEO of Abacus Life. For almost 20 years, Abacus has been purchasing life insurance policies from seniors just like you. And at abacuspays.com, we've created a free policy value calculator so you can find out the worth of your policy in just seconds. There are no fees and no obligations. Get real value from your life insurance when you need it with Abacus. Learn more at abacuspays.com.
helping to make you the most knowledgeable person in your circle of friends. This is Tavis Smiley.
I was just thinking the Olympics are underway, as we all know, in Paris, and we're waiting for track and field for those of us who love track and field. If you come out the blocks wrong, it's hard to catch up, right? The good news, I've got 3 hours to try to straighten up coming out these blocks today with a guest who wasn't there. Let's try this again. Shama Sawant, can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Thank you. How are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, Tom?
I'm well, thank you. Let me jump right in and make the most of these few minutes that we have left here. I was saying, when you could not hear me, apparently, that labor plays a huge and outsized role, obviously, in these presidential elections. And you've long been an organizer, an activist, and I want to take your temperature on the issue of labor in this all-important election. Labor starting to take sides and lining up behind these various candidates. I think I want to start with this. I'm sure you saw, I said earlier, if for those who could stomach it, it was quite historic to watch the president of the Teamsters give a major address at the RNC. What did you make of that?
I thought that it was shameful for a prominent and long-standing labor leader to go to the RNC, not only speak to, obviously, an audience that is right-wing, full of funding from billionaires, but also praising Trump himself. That is really odious, and it is completely misleading for working people to lead them to think that somehow Trumpism or right-wing populism is going to help solve their problems. It's not. Unfortunately, though, I think it is important for us to understand that this has even come to pass in the first place. Why this even happened in the first place is because rank and file union members and American working class as a whole have been completely betrayed also by the Democratic Party. You know, every presidential election year, every local and state elections, the labor leaders channel hundreds of millions of dollars to Democratic campaigns. And what do we get out of it? I'll tell you what we get out of it. We got Biden breaking the railroad workers' strike. We got Biden and Harris, for that matter, breaking their promise to pass a $15 minimum wage nationally. And in fact, I'm sure some of your listeners know my Socialist Council office, the labor movement, and our 15 Now movement actually won the first $15 minimum wage victory in a major city when we won it in Seattle 10 years ago. But guess what I'm about to do in a few hours? I'm about to go to City Hall. I'm no longer a council member, but I'm about to go to City Hall and hold a press conference alongside working people. Why? Because the all-Democrat City Council in Seattle is now attempting to dismantle our $15 minimum wage. So far from fighting for 15, they're actually trying to dismantle the 15 that we have won.
Tell me more about why that is. You are, in fact, a former member of the Seattle City Council, and the audience here, as you say now, you headed to a council meeting now to protest what was passed on your watch. Why is the city of Seattle backtracking on that $15 an hour minimum wage?
Because this is what happens from the representatives of the interests of the capitalist class. You know, we are in a capitalist system, and the Democrats and Republicans, despite their differences, ultimately are both representatives of big business interests. And so when we won 15, you know, this was a historic victory, and I was in office then. I won 4 elections. I did not run again last year because we launched a nationwide organization called Workers Strike Back, which everybody should check out, workersstrikeback.org. So now today it's going to be a Workers Strike Back press conference. But when we won 15 in 2014, it was not because of the help from the Democrats on the city council. It was despite their opposition, because they all stood in line serving the interests of the Chamber of Commerce, of the restaurant industry, of big business. And we won despite them because we had a mass workers movement with tens of thousands of workers. And so what happens under capitalism is that winning a progressive reform like $15 an hour, let alone Medicare for all, which is a bigger one, takes an almighty movement that has the clarity that the Democrats and Republicans are not on our side. We need to build independent movements. And ultimately, we also reminded people that the workers who would be the most affected if we didn't win 15 were actually disproportionately Black and women workers. And what happens is that even when you win, as hard as it is, once you win under capitalism, what happens is that the representatives of big business interests, they go after whatever you have won in the past. So we have to fight to defend what we have won, as we are about to do today. But at the same time, we also have to understand that this is not going to be enough. Fighting for reforms, as hard as it is, it's not going to be enough. We need to dismantle the system of capitalism itself. That's why I am a socialist. And concretely, this year, I strongly believe that for working people, voting for Harris or Trump is not a real option. We have to build our own independent party. And as a stepping stone towards that, I would strongly urge everybody to vote for Jill Stein, who is an anti-war, pro-worker candidate who is fighting for a $25 an hour minimum wage. And let's not forget the issue of the war itself. You know, the U.S. government, the Biden regime, U.S. Congress, they are sending tens of billions of dollars for this genocidal war on Gaza carried out by the Israeli state. And now we are seeing the threat of wider war loom around us with what's happening with in the Golan Heights. So we have to fight to end the war. We have to fight to end U.S. military funding for the Israeli state. But none of this is going to happen if we put our faith in the Democrats or Republicans.
You make your points very clear, and I hear them, and I know this audience hears them as well. Your point that workers in this country, everyday people, have been betrayed by both the Democrats and Republicans. Let me take the Democratic issue head on. Joe Biden, of course, is no longer running for president. He stood down and passed that torch to Kamala Harris, who you've already indicted in this conversation. I heard that loud and clear. But as you know, the narrative on Joe Biden, had he stayed in the race, the narrative that he was pushing, that they were going to push, was that Joe Biden is the first president, like ever, to walk the picket line. Joe Biden went to Detroit and walked the picket line. That is the imagery. That's the narrative we get about the Democratic Party and Democrats standing with workers. How do you respond to that particular narrative? Hey, Shama, Joe Biden walked the picket line.
I'm so glad you asked this question because this can often be confusing, and this is how the Democratic Party politicians act, which is that when they can get away with it, they are blatantly and openly and shamelessly anti-worker. But when they are under pressure, which they have been in the last few years with the resurgence of the labor movement, last year saw the largest number of workers out on major strikes, meaning strikes that had 1,000 workers or more out on, themselves on the picket line. Since 1986, last year was the largest number of workers out on strike. So under pressure from workers who are getting restive and frustrated at being sold out repeatedly, especially young workers, under those pressures, the labor leadership themselves, who are tied at the hip to the Democrats, themselves are forced to call strike actions, which is all really important. But under this pressure, you will see sometimes Democrats make gestures, which I would call virtue signaling. I have seen Democrats in the city, in the Seattle City Council, walk the picket line occasionally because they are under pressure from me being on the picket line and us as socialists and workers calling them out. So they do that when they are really, really required to do. But at the end of the day, we also have to look at what is it that they have actually done with their time in office. Did they use their office to fight for $15 an hour, let alone actually have an effective strategy to win it? No, Biden has broken every promise that he made to working people. And, so we have to look beyond those empty gestures and virtue signaling and understand that at the end of the day, neither of these parties is representing us. We need a party of our own. And I know that sounds like a daunting task, but let me tell you, it is a fool's errand to think that decade after decade, that after being sold out over and over again by these politicians, that they're going to ultimately stand up for us. That is not going to happen. That is the impossible task. The possible, though difficult task is for workers and the labor movement to build our own independent strength, and we need militant rank-and-file-led strategy.
It is one thing to suggest, Shama Sawant, that workers, everyday people in this country, have been betrayed by both Democrats and Republicans. But do you really believe that there's no distinct difference between Republicans and Democrats broadly when it comes to the rights of workers?
Absolutely not. In fact, as a socialist, I am strongly apprehensive of what can happen with Trump 2.0. And in fact, we don't need to use too much imagination in the sense that we know what the Project 2025 and all these ominous signals that right-wing populism and the Trump campaign has already made very openly. They don't hide their agenda. And furthermore, he's already been president for 4 years. So we know what can happen. We We as socialists in Seattle, we fought against the Muslim travel ban, and we shut down SeaTac Airport here against Trump's anti-immigrant, really horrendous policies. But we have to remember that if we want to defeat Trump and right-wing populism, which we absolutely want to do, the way to do it is not to follow the dead end of the Democrats, because the truth is that the Democratic Party and its elite are the best builders of Trumpism. Let's not forget the Tea Party movement got its light in the day because of the betrayals by the Obama administration. Workers were fed up, and then when there is no actual worker-led left-wing alternative leadership for workers to get organized around, then some of them start looking elsewhere, and that's the opening, the vacuum left by the absence of a real left leadership. That's the vacuum that Trump is seizing. He's a con man. He is a billionaire. He absolutely has and will continue to represent the billionaire class, alongside also putting forward really, as I said, really scary immigrant, anti-immigrant, anti-worker, anti-LGBTQ rhetoric, and he will carry out some of these policies if we allow him to do that. But if you want to defeat Trump, their strategy is not to then fall in line with the Democrats. Their strategy is to actually build independent movements, and that is why I'm supporting Jill Stein, precisely because I want to defeat right-wing populism and I want to win things for workers like Medicare for All. And I'll tell you something, if Harris was to wake up tomorrow and say, I am going to fight for Medicare for all, I don't stand with the insurance and pharma industry, I am going to fight for Medicare for all, I am against the war on Gaza, we need to end U.S. military funding, absolutely she will galvanize the kind of excitement that she will need to win against Trump, but she's not going to do that. That's my whole point. Yeah. How many years are we going to continue putting faith in one Democrat after another, thinking that they will maybe they will not be a warmongering candidate, maybe they will be pro-worker, but that's not happening. So how long can we wait for that?
Well, I pray that Kamala Harris wakes up tomorrow morning. I pray that she does, but I can assure you, when she does wake up, she ain't gonna say none of that. That I am certain of. Shama Sawan, there's no question in my mind about that. That ain't gonna come out of her mouth when she wakes up tomorrow morning. That said, I'm watching my time. Got 5 minutes left. Tell me more about your indictment of labor. You've indicted the Democratic Party and its leadership, Biden and Harris. We started this conversation talking about the Teamsters president speaking at the RNC and his sort of embrace of Donald Trump. You called that shameful. But now let me ask you to indict labor. If labor, to your point, is in the pocket of the Democratic Party, and they have not been regarded and respected and prioritized as they should be, why does labor remain in the pocket, to use your phrase, of the Democratic Party?
Unfortunately, what has happened is over the years, we've seen major attacks on the labor movement and on social movements in general ever since the Reagan era. I'm sure many of the listeners who are listening to this were born well after that. But I think looking at history is really crucial, because what we saw, especially starting with the Reagan-Thatcher era, Thatcher in UK and Reagan in the US, there was a decades-long attack on workers' rights and on the labor movement that happened. And unfortunately, what happens under capitalism is that it's not only that the overt and, very clear representatives of the billionaires and the super rich who are clearly corrupt and, selling us out. What happens is that the system of capitalism, a system like capitalism, which requires this massive inequality between the masses of people and a sliver of people who benefit at the top, they need spokespeople. That system needs its own spokespeople, like cogs in the machine at every level. And so it has a way of corrupting the thinking of all kinds of movements. And so what you end up seeing is big sections of the leadership of movements that should be on the side of working people end up getting co-opted into that other side. So what you've seen is the development of something called business unionism, meaning leaders who see themselves, as O'Brien actually said, maybe in a Freudian moment, he called himself a negotiator in that speech. And, that was a rare moment of honesty in the sense that they do see themselves, business unionist leaders see themselves as negotiators, quote unquote, between the bosses and the workers, where they're trying to make peace, and they straddle this twilight zone between the boss's interest and the labor workers' interest. They make tens of thousands of dollars more than the members that they represent. Most of these labor leaders make $250,000, $300,000 salaries. When I was in office in city council as a socialist, I took home only the average worker's wage, and the rest of my lavish city council salary after taxes went to build a solidarity fund, including for strike funds of unions. And, that is an aspect of accountability. So we don't have any of that accountability, and that is why we need to have rank and file led militant organizing inside the labor movement so that we can actually, elect leadership that is actually accountable to us, takes home only the average worker's wage, and is not shilling for the Democratic Party. We need leadership that is actually tied to the interests of the needs of ordinary people. And I'll tell you something, it is not just about the labor movement. What we have seen even through the Black Lives Matter movement is it's a cautionary tale of what kind of leadership we need and how to hold leadership accountable, because we had 20 million people marching on the streets against racial injustice, against police violence, and against economic injustice in multiracial working class solidarity. And yet, what are the gains of the BLM movement? Unfortunately, the gains are modest because of the betrayals by many of the BLM leaders who took millions of dollars for their own NGOs and then ended up getting cushy positions within the Democratic Party. At the end of the day, that's why we need accountable leadership, but that's not going to happen unless we have a rank and file led momentum.
Her organization is called Workers Strike Back. Workers Strike Back. You can read about it online more for yourself. She's a socialist strategist, as you heard her say proudly a few times in this conversation. Former member of the Seattle City Council, but opted not to run because at heart, she is concerned about the future of workers in this country, hence her organizing through this organization called Workers Strike Back. Her name is Shama Sawant, and I'm pleased to have had Shama on this program. Shama, thank you for your work and witness. Good to have you on. All the best to you.
Thank you so much, and all the best to you, Tavis. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very, very much. When we come forward, former Senator Barbara Boxer on the future of the sister who took her seat in the U.S. Senate, Kamala Harris, and more. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
What's your quarrel with the world? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know? The United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time. Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Major Supreme Court reforms are being pushed by President Biden. While speaking in Austin, Texas to mark the 60th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act, Biden called for 18-year term limits for justices and an enforceable code of ethics. Former President Donald Trump is coming to Illinois this week. His campaign says he's attending the National Association of Black Journalists Convention in Chicago tomorrow. Trump will participate in a Q&A with political journalists that will concentrate on issues facing the black community. A new study shows that exposure to wildfire smoke leads to a higher risk of someone being diagnosed with dementia. The study was released yesterday at the Alzheimer's Association International Conference. Researchers believe toxic chemicals found in wildfire smoke and fine particulate matter are damaging to the brain. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
It's Mattress Firm's semi-annual sale and clearance. Save up to 60% on a wide selection of quality mattresses at every price. Plus, score a free adjustable base with a qualifying purchase. Hurry and stop by Mattress Firm today.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The U.S. women's basketball team had no trouble at all in their first game in the Summer Olympics in Paris. They beat Japan by 26. 56 straight wins for the U.S. women in Olympic competition, a streak that started in 1992 in Barcelona. Asia Wilson had 24 points and 13 rebounds. Next game for the women's team is Saturday against Belgium. The U.S. men's basketball team is off until Wednesday. They have a second-round matchup against South Sudan. Simone Biles confirmed she will compete today in the women's gymnastic team finals. Biles suffered a mild calf strain on Sunday. Simone is trying to become the first gymnast in the world, male or female, to win 5 gold medals in the same Olympics. The Dodgers and Angels are back on the field tonight after a day off yesterday. The Dodgers are in San Diego. The Angels are at home against Colorado. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Are you interested in catching up on all the latest entertainment news, trending topics, and exciting interviews? I got you. Tune in to The Raw Report with Robin Ayers, Monday through Friday, 6 to 7 p.m. I'm your host, Robin Ayers. Join me every weekday with some of the best entertainment contributors in the business as we break down what's going on, who's got next, and what not to miss. Only on The Raw Report with Robin Ayers.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
I occasionally have nerve discomfort in my hands, so the things I love to do
Let's play something, Grandma.
became difficult as I got older.
If you have occasional stabbing and burning in your hands and feet, try Nervive Nerve Relief. Nervive's clinically studied dose of alpha-lipoic acid reduces occasional nerve discomfort in as little as 7 days with continued daily use. Say yes to healthy nerves with Nervive Nerve Relief. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Ooh, I'm so ready for this weekend away with my girls.
Hey, hit the road? How about some free gas?
Free gas? How?
Try new Febreze car for some serious freshness and you can win gas for a full year. Visit Febreze.com to learn more.
Say less.
You may not win, but you're gonna have a fresh smelling whip.
Thanks, DJ Fresh. Now how about some music?
Hey, yo, this next one goes out to new Febreze car for giving you a chance to win free gas.
No purchase necessary. Must be 18 to enter N73124 for rules and how to enter. Visit Febreze.com.
This is the story of the one. As head of maintenance at a concert hall, he knows the show must always go on. That's why he works behind the scenes, ensuring every light is working, the HVAC is humming, and his facility shines. With Grainger's supplies and solutions for every challenge he faces, plus 24/7 customer support, his venue never misses a beat. Call quickgrainger.com or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Ugh, I've been feeling so sluggish. I'm just kind of blah.
Been there. That's why I take Align yogurt-coated probiotic fruit bites.
But I suppose they taste blah.
Actually, they taste delicious. It's an apple blueberry flavored center covered in a yogurt coating and is infused with probiotics to help support a healthy gut. They come 5 in a pouch. I just toss one in my bag and go.
Toss one in my bag?
Get your own.
New Align yogurt-coated probiotic fruit bites from the makers of the #1 doctor-recommended probiotic brand. Find them in the digestive care aisle.
Made fresh daily in Leimert Park, Los Angeles, California. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
As promised now, a conversation with former California U.S. Senator Barbara Boxer on the political future of the woman who succeeded her in the U.S. Senate, Kamala Harris. I also want to ask Senator Boxer about legislation she proposed years ago to abolish the Electoral College. One could look at the map today and see ways in which Kamala Harris could win the popular vote, not unlike Hillary Clinton, but lose the Electoral College. Barbara Boxer said years ago, do away with it. Let's scrap that and start all over again. Pleased to have Barbara Boxer on this program. Senator, how are you today?
I'm great. And before we get into anything, I want to say congratulations to you on what you've achieved. I remember so many years ago you're interviewing me. And now, look what you've done. You had a vision and you made it happen. Congratulations.
You are far too kind. I appreciate that immensely, Senator. And it's good to hear your voice again. It has been a while. How have you been for starters? You sound wonderful. How have you been?
Well, we've been great. My husband and I married 62 years.
Wow.
And we're right now. I know it's crazy. That's crazy. I met him when I was 18 years old.
Wow.
I know. And we have a little place in Oakland, which is the place where Kamala was born, and that's where we are right now. And I'm still working. I teach and I make speeches, and I have some clients in the healthcare space. So I've never really retired, except I did retire from the Senate.
Yeah.
And Kamala did win my seat going away.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Let me get philosophical for just a second, then we'll get to the politics. I see too often politicians who don't want to stand down. We just went through this, of course, with Joe Biden. What everyone thinks of him, he wanted to hold on a little bit longer, and I'm not making an assessment of that at this particular moment. But there are all kinds of politicians, namely in the U.S. Senate and in other places, that don't want to step down. And my sense is that sometimes they don't want to step down because all they've known for most of their lives, like Joe Biden, is being in politics. But every time I think of you or read about you, I get reminded that there is life, and maybe even a pretty good life after politics. Can you opine on that?
Oh, I can. And I tell all my former colleagues that. You know, it's for a lot of people, their identity is through their work. It's through their work. It's not just, in politics. It's whatever field you choose. And but in politics, I think it's very important to know when to hold them and know when to fold them.
Oh, yeah.
And many things go into that decision. The other point I make in defense of people who stay late is many people don't get elected, especially to the Senate, till they're well into their 50s or 60. But at some point, you have to pass the torch. And I think for Joe Biden, he had said when he got elected that he was going to be a transitional president, but he loved to work so much. I know him so well, and he did so well at it. It was very, very difficult for him.
Yeah. Did he make the right decision?
I think so. I didn't like the bullying, frankly, and I said it on TV many times. That went on. I kept telling everybody who called me, tell him all of this privately. But at the end of the day, as someone who loves him, reveres him, and thinks he was a great president, I think it's a relief to him because it's the office weighs so heavily on your shoulders, even when you're young. Look at some of our young presidents. You age in that job.
Oh, yeah.
And to do that plus a unbelievably difficult campaign against a would-be dictator, you really have to prosecute the case against him. And I think nobody could do it better than Kamala Harris.
No, it is. It's funny, but it's true. This office does age you, and every president that goes in with dark hair comes out with white hair. Be it George Bush or Bill Clinton or Barack Obama, they start black and they end up gray by the time they leave.
Yeah.
So it does age you. It does indeed. When I asked you whether or not you thought Joe Biden made the right choice, you said, "I think so, Tavis. I think so." Why that hesitation? And tell me more about what you think Kamala's chances are.
I think her chances are great. When I say I think so, it's a little humility on my part. I find the more I'm around, you can't be positive of anything.
Oh, yeah.
But I think it was the right decision for him, and I think it was the right decision for the country. Look, if you look at so many presidential races, and I go back, I was young when JFK ran, and it was also an age election. He was so young, and I remember I couldn't even vote at that time, but feeling that the future was going to be so great because there was someone who was invested in the future. And it was a beautiful thing. And we know it was an issue then. It was an issue, Clinton and Gore.
Yeah.
They had that youthful energy, so they won. And then Barack Obama, I looked it up. John McCain would have been the oldest president ever elected at that time. And Barack Obama was young. And so every kind of election we've had where it's really old against young. Young has won because of the nature of America. We're always looking forward.
That's Bill Clinton's famous line that every election is about the future, never about the past, always about the future. It's clear to both you and me that when you decide to step aside from any elective office, you can't always control who takes your seat. Barack Obama surely didn't want Donald Trump to take his seat. Thurgood Marshall surely didn't want Clarence Thomas to take his seat. How does the Barbara Boxer feel about Kamala Harris taking her seat then in the U.S. Senate?
I endorsed Kamala when she ran for the Senate. And she won very handily over another woman, and she ran a very clean campaign. And I liked that. And so I was sad when she ran for president in 2020 because I didn't want her to leave the Senate because I had stayed there talk about staying there. I was there for 24 years. And I saw how she was a natural we all saw how she prosecuted the cases, against all of these witnesses that came up like Kavanaugh and so on. So it made me sad, but I think for me, stepping aside at that time was exactly the right thing to do. And the thing, I've been fortunate in my life. I've always known when to stay, when to go. When I was in the House of Representatives for 10 years, people said, don't go for the Senate. You'll never make it. You're an asterisk in the polls. And I was, and I made it. And so I just know sometimes, you've got to move on.
I said earlier, and I want to take your temperature on this when we come forward, that you were one of those persons years ago suggesting that the Electoral College had outlived its usefulness. I mentioned moments ago that your friend Hillary Clinton won the popular vote, but lost in the Electoral College. One at the moment can look at the map and see potentially the same thing happening this time around, where Kamala wins the popular vote, but can't necessarily pull it off in the Electoral College. We'll talk about that part, as they say, when we come forward. Former U.S. Senator Barbara Boxer on Tavis Smiley.
Interrogating and unpacking. That's what we do around here. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well-trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
Tavis is like George and Wheezy. He's moving on up. Last year, Tavis was number 45 on the Talkers magazine list of the 100 most important radio talk show hosts in America. Wait for it. Wait for it. The 2024 list was recently released, and Tavis has jumped to number 33 on the list of the nation's most important talkers, making him the highest-ranked African-American on the coveted roster. Congratulations to Tavis Smiley from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580. We've got you black.
JP Morgan Chase is building on the investments in California and around the country to help close the racial wealth gap and build a more equitable future. As part of JP Morgan Chase commitment, they are taking action to help improve financial wealth and access to banking in the Black community, helping more people open low-cost checking and savings accounts, hosting community seminars with supporting Black-led institutions by building awareness about financial investments, hiring community managers, and opening community center branches like Crenshaw, Inglewood, and downtown LA. Visit today, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity. Again, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity. Get the tools to help reach your financial goals. Visit today, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity. Again, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity.
Let's get back to more of this rich dialogue with Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley, former California Senator Barbara Boxer, who I'm pleased to have on this program. Senator Boxer, watching my time is getting away from me. Never enough time with you. Let me ask you about the Electoral College and what your thoughts were about it then and whether or not your views have changed now.
Well, the Electoral College has outlived its usefulness, if it ever had any usefulness. If you live in a democracy and you believe the majority wins, then the majority should win.
Mm-hmm.
So it disenfranchises so many of us, and in large states, it's ridiculous. And so it should be whoever gets the most votes wins. To me, it's not complicated, and we came very, very close way back in the 70s to getting rid of it. It was so close, and even Richard Nixon supported doing away with it. And now the Republicans lean on it because they can't win majority. They have a harder time than we do.
Mm-hmm. So can you imagine ever a serious conversation once again like we had in the 70s about doing away with it?
Yeah, when we have more votes in the United States Senate and the House and we have the presidency. Yeah. Otherwise, I don't see it happening. So this election, maybe I'm, wishful thinking. But right now, I call what we're in now a 5-alarm fire. Mm-hmm. We have a Donald Trump who has basically said he'd be a dictator on day one, and people say, well, he only meant for one day. Well, on that first day, he declares martial law, we're done for. So that's a disaster. Then just the other day, he said to a group that he said, just vote. This will be the last time you'll ever have to vote if I get elected. So, this isn't some political stunt we're pulling when we say that he wants to do away with democracy. He does. So we're in this 5-alarm fire, and we have to focus on winning. And I think people are coming on board here. I think it's fascinating. The beautiful rainbow of America is coming forward and proud to do it. Blacks for Kamala, whites for Kamala, browns for Kamala. It's just... blue-eyed people for Kamala.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to come forward in all our diversity, and I think, and Republicans are coming forward now. I mean, for goodness sakes, his vice president isn't even supporting him. And if I were J.D. Vance, I'd be a little concerned right now.
Yeah.
Because the last vice president, he almost had killed.
Ain't that the truth? I have a really smart audience, and I'm reading messages from some of them as you and I talk, Barbara Boxer. Let me just read this right quick to your point about Trump saying this will be your last time having to vote. I'm quoting here from one of our listeners. Trump's stump points about last elections, and I don't need your votes, isn't just crazy rally talk. He doesn't intend to win, Tavis, with votes. They are counting on 70 MAGA election deniers who were recently elected to key election positions across the battleground states to refuse to certify the results if Trump loses. If they refuse to certify, their states cannot announce the results, and we have chaos or a bloodless January 6th insurrection once again. He means it. Win or lose, this will be the last election. The Democrats think this is a presidential election. Trump knows this is just the latest stage of his ongoing January 6th insurrection. Your thoughts, Senator Boxer?
Okay. I don't want to go down that road at this time.
Mm-hmm.
The road I want to go down is this. Trump has said he wants to be a dictator. He said it's the last election. And we know he's capable of inciting an insurrection. We have to win and win big. I don't want to, and there are many lawyers, great constitutional lawyers, who are working on all those scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, as a pragmatist, as someone who is desperate to win this election for Kamala and for us, the country, I think best that we focus on a blowout election.
Mm-hmm.
It could actually happen. It could actually happen. We take it a day at a time, but we're not dumb. We have many attorneys here who are organized to fight all these battles in the various states.
Yeah. Our remaining moments with the pragmatist, former U.S. Senator Barbara Boxer. When we come forward, I want to ask her about President Biden's comments yesterday about reforming the U.S. Supreme Court. Barbara Boxer knows something about that, having been in the Senate for 24 years. You're listening to Barbara Boxer, and I'm glad about it, on Tavis Smiley.
For all the freedom-loving folk, this is Tavis Smiley.
I feel like
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada, member FDIC.
Substance use disorder and addiction is so isolating. And so, as a Black woman in recovery, hope must be loud. It grows louder when you ask for help and you're vulnerable. It is the thread that lets you know that no matter what happens, you will be okay.
When we learn the power of hope, recovery is possible. Find out how at startwithhope.com. Brought to you by the National Council for Mental Wellbeing, Shatterproof, and the Ad Council.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA reminds you that when we fight, we win, and we don't black down. LA Community Action Network, or LA CAN, was formed in 1999 when 25 residents of downtown LA came together and acknowledged the problems that existed in their community and made a commitment to do something about those problems, to stand together, organize, and become a force in the community that demands change. Civil rights and preventing the criminalization of poverty are their core projects. In addition, they take on women's rights, the human right to housing, and healthy food access. LA CAN also has projects focused on economic development, civic participation, voter engagement, and community media. While downtown LA remains their home base, with a particular emphasis on the Skid Row community, in 2007 they expanded their housing and healthy food access work into South Central Los Angeles. LA CAN believes that power for low-income people and people of color is achieved through a large, active, and well-informed member base that utilizes a multitude of methods to advance their messages and goals. If you'd like to join the Los Angeles Community Action Network and organize people to fight back against oppression, please visit cangress.org. That's cangress.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Sounds different, huh? This is Tavis Smiley.
This is Tavis Smiley in conversation with Senator Barbara Boxer, former senator from California. When she retired, she endorsed one Kamala Harris for that seat. Kamala Harris won that seat handily and then went on to be vice president and is now the presumptive Democratic nominee for president of these United States. Barbara Boxer served honorably in the U.S. Senate for 24 years. And so I want to ask her now, and we were talking earlier about her views on the outdated electoral college. In a democracy, the most votes ought to win. It doesn't quite work that way. Republicans are hanging on to the electoral college, she said earlier, for all the obvious reasons. They can't win the popular vote, so they're clinging to that electoral college. She made the point that we can only get rid of it in the years to come if we have more Democrats in the House, more Democrats in the Senate, and more Democrats in the White House. Maybe then we'll get another bite at the apple like we had in the 70s to have a serious conversation about doing away with the electoral college. I think the same could probably be said of what Joe Biden talked about yesterday, Senator Boxer, and that is reforming the Supreme Court. It ain't going to take flight this year, but what did you make of his recommendations, his suggestions yesterday?
I think what's so important about it is that Joe Biden was not there. He was not there a few months ago when a lot of us were saying this ought to happen.
Yeah.
But now the absolute corruption at the court, the fact that, they said one thing when they got confirmed, another thing when they had the chance, the fact that they are dangerous. I mean, look what they've done to our rights. And so I think what he's doing is the right thing. It's going to be a slog, but the American people have to really understand and connect the dots between what happens to their lives because of the Supreme Court. Mm-hmm. And I think they got a real wake-up call when Roe v. Wade was overturned, and it's going to continue on. I mean, there's some horrible decisions they've made. The Chevron case, where now, our government can't protect us very easily from pollution and from being ripped off because of this court.
Yeah. Well, from your mouth to God's ears, that is, we need a serious conversation about reform of the U.S. Supreme Court, and I'm glad the president finally got around to it yesterday. To your earlier point, he wasn't where you were and others were a few months ago. My sense very quickly is, and I'm glad he went there, but my sense is, I said yesterday, Senator Boxer, that he likely would not have given that speech yesterday had he still been on the ballot.
I'm not so sure of that.
Okay.
Because I think the only reason I say that, I don't know, but yeah. I think that the outrageous behavior of the court has led him to a different place, because that man is an institutionalist.
He is indeed.
I mean, he has spent so much time, under a certain order. Yeah. And so for him, it's hard for him to step out and say, we must do something different. But the actions of the court, the lack of transparency, and the fact that they just seem out and out corrupt, taking these gifts and they don't seem ready to in any way rein themselves in. Yes, a couple of the Democrats, all of them, want to have a way to rein in these excesses, but most of them don't.
Senator Boxer, always a delight and an honor, a joy, in fact, to be in conversation with you. It's good to hear your voice after all this time. You're still busy as ever, but thank you for giving us these 30 minutes. All the best to you. Thank you once again.
Back to you.
Thank you. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Major Supreme Court reforms are being pushed by President Biden. While speaking in Austin, Texas, to mark the 60th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act, Biden called for 18-year term limits for justices and an enforceable code of ethics. Former President Donald Trump is coming to Illinois this week. His campaign says he's attending the National Association of Black Journalists Convention in Chicago tomorrow. Trump will participate in a Q&A with political journalists that will concentrate on issues facing the black community. A new study shows that exposure to wildfire smoke leads to a higher risk of someone being diagnosed with dementia. The study was released yesterday at the Alzheimer's Association International Conference. Researchers believe toxic chemicals found in wildfire smoke and fine particulate matter